Hello, Screwfix Blaze, thanks for joining me again. I've got a little project I want to do for Rob, and that is to revisit a ferro rod in U with a blue liner. Now I've mentioned on a few previous videos that what I like to do is, rather than bond 3 layers together, that would be 2 layers of wood and 1 of G10 within a ferro rod blank and then turn it. I want to put a fillet down through the middle of 2 layers of G10. In that the middle layer will be easier for the drill to go down through. G10 in itself is very hard, and a problem that can happen and did on the blank I got in other ways is when you get a center section like that, it's easier to run the drill down through between there, which worked, but then the drill deflected on the second hole, so scrap, start again. So I've been the last couple of days sorting out some more blue G10, and then we're going to make one blank out of this. Now what I want to do is, rather than use the wood that I've got inside, I want to go U again. So the center fillet is U. So what I've had to do is I've ripped off a piece of U that thick. Now, as good as I can go, unfortunately the cheapo Screwfix panel saw, table saw, is not going to be very accurate when it comes to ripping stuff down through. And again, bandsaws, you get deflection. So how I end up making things nice and even and flat is using a planer thicknesser. So I've had a planer, but then I know the problem is it doesn't like going any narrower than about 8 mil. So the plan is, and this is the one we're gonna, they all fall on my sword, is I'm going to use a backing board of a piece of oak that's solid, and I'm going to fix the U on top. Okay, so there'll be about the right size. I'm going to cut a piece of that to fit neatly on the top of the oak, to run it through the planer thicknesser so it operates on a slightly thicker piece of stock, if that makes sense. I run it through, it doesn't like grabbing stuff thinner than about 8 mil. So the plan is, I'm going to cut that, fit the top of that, and then glue it on, just gently, low sort of tack with some glue gun, just literally a squidge, if that makes sense. So the choice is, I cut the piece to fit, glue it on and hold it down, or glue it on top, turn it upside down, and then run it through the table saw once it's glued on, and then possibly the saw smacks it off the bottom. Decisions. I'll try cutting it and then gluing it. Yeah, what the hell. All best laid plans. I'm thinking, let's try and be efficient. Put the glue gun on whilst I saw. That'll be heating up. This is so cheap and tacky. It doesn't even stand up. So that's warming up. Onto the cheap table saw of doom. Oh, also, filler knife. Very nice. I might try and clean that up at some point. Okay, so it's that long. Something like that. Okay. You. It's very sensitive, creating allergic reaction wood. So even though it's a small piece, get the extract sorted out. So there we go. move the camera over here, and there's the glue gun. I'll come back when that's pretty much there. That's almost the plan, Wessex. Yeah, I'm not trying to bond it forever, just trying to skim it down, and I only need that much. So as long as when I can see what the planer blade has actioned on the top of the U, as long as I get it to there, I got enough to cut off to fit in there for a fillet. So I don't need to get all the way down there where it's got thinner, but up here it's pretty even. I just need to plane to about there, and it should be about right. Fiver. You got to get the right glue sticks. So there are a lot of like 6mm and 7mm and 8mm. Anyway, but yeah, cheap little thing like that. It's just give me the option. It should work. So that's it. Let's see if it gets ripped off the top through the planer thicknesser in a minute. Okay, for those who are new to woodworking machines, this is a planer thicknesser. This does two things. It either feeds wood in flat with a table that moves up to sort of like gauge the thickness, and then there's two sets of rollers that are going through, grab hold of the wood, drive it through a spinning drum with blades on, and then catch it at the other end and then feed it out. So you grab it and then you pass it through. This handle here raises the table underneath that the wood fits on. Or the other section is the top of the drum with spinning blades is exposed on top if you take this extract hood off, and you can run a fence the other side and you can do the edges of the wood. I've no need of using the edge of the wood, so it's always permanently setting down as a thicknesser. So here we go. It should work. Mask. Again, I've got extract set up, so it comes across the top, and this hood collects most of the dust and sort of Okay, so I now have the U planed pretty even so that I can put it to the fillet down the middle. Let's have a look, see what it looks like on the other side. So I'm going to prise it off now with a workshop blade. Could be fun. See you in a minute. That's one side done. Now the other side. Oh. And the glue's coming off. A bit like if ever you've bought Total Guitar or Guitar Techniques or Guitarist magazine and you get the CD thumped to the front of it. It's that sort of peel off glue that I've replicated. Slightly more tack than that stuff. That's actually quite easy to rub off, but this is coming away all right. So I'll get the board back. Let's put the glue gun back on for a couple of minutes. Once then we can then ever so carefully put that to that side and then plane that final thing, because what I'm trying to get rid of obviously are the circular saw. See the circular saw grooves? If that was bandsaw, you'd see bandsaw machining marks. So I want to get a nice basically fillet of wood using wood machines, so that when I make the blank up it looks even on both sides. Just the lengths you go to for a ferro rod. Let's explain. Okay, ready to rock and roll. What's happened there is, it's like I got the wood back to front. Now, planing and routing, you have, if you go to routing, you have your climb. So as the routing edge will come along, if you were dragging it across one way, at some points it's easier to get the router edge to go that way and dig in. Sometimes you want to go the other way so it doesn't dig in as much, if that makes sense. Imagine that, but now we're sort of on the drum running horizontally across here. The grain picked up that way round. I went in that way, okay, and the blades coming around didn't like there. Oh no. Gah! Thump! That happened. So now I'm going to make this the lead edge. To remind myself, you have that real high-tech piece of equipment that all carpenters know about. Best kept secret. Ta-da! So that's the lead edge. not going in that way, because it literally, the blade's dug in, and when you're dealing with something this thin glued on, didn't like it. Come on, glue gun, you done yet? For a ferro rottenness. Ta-da! So, see how this works. And there's enough real estate on there so I can get the U. You're not going to see any of the grain, you're just going to see the U that way, but at least it'll be U in the middle as opposed to maybe a bit of oak or something. I'm happy with that. So, you know, the actual fillet looks even and about 2.5 mil thick. So let's pop that off of there, and then I can finally get that cut in half. So you only want that much really, but I've got enough U fillet to do 3 more ferro rods, something like that. So let's get this cut on, pry it off and get ready for ferro rod. Anyway, as a point of reference, prizing that off with the blade, that's about as thin as, if anybody else is going to, don't go any thinner than that, because you'll probably break the wood when you're removing it from the backboard. But I'm happy with that. I'll go a bit thicker next time maybe, but now I've got plenty of section there, which is a nice even thickness, and yeah, nice. But yeah, anybody else maybe go 2.5, 3 mil thick, maybe 4, rather than that. That's like 2 mil thick now. Yeah, go a bit thicker. So just to rip it down in half, I roughly offer it up to the measuring scale there. I'm looking just over 110, so I'll set it at 54, because you always lose a bit with the blade. So 54. Bear in mind that the accuracy of this hobby, it's Weekend Warrior. Okay, it's a DIY thing. Does it look right? 54. Yeah. Anything around 55, 60, this sort of size and bigger, I'm quite happy to run my fingers along. Okay, but for the sake of on video, what I'm going to do is use a push stick and hold it here. Get the extract sorted. So I take that hole off there. Yeah, run a Henry's nose up inside some Henry's tube, something like that. So from using a pretty rough hobby DIY weekend warrior planer thicknesser, I was able to use it to do something that really is too thin to do it on itself. I've used a jockey board, piece of oak, and obviously was planed reasonably even, and then glue gunned the U on top. So rough sawn is not going to be a uniform thickness. The hobby stuff is really not just capable of it. They'll be rattled, the fence moved, the blade, and it does all sorts of wonderful things. But by doing that technique, I'm able to get pretty even U fillet down through the center of that with two G10 blue liners. Now the drill, if I use a 3mm drill or 4mm drill, that should quite happily rattle down the center of those two pieces of G10, and I'll have far less risk of deflecting than if it had, you know, a piece of U G10 and then U on the outside. What's easier to drill in? U. And the amount of times the bastard thing is deflected out, okay, off that hard G10. Fibre liner, not so bad, but even then it's quite stiff stuff. So anyway, that's now my little project in this afternoon. I shall key those down, scratch them up with a used piece of 36 grit belt, acetone them off neat and tidy, key that down both sides, key that down, wipe it all off, glue that, and then obviously offer up the grains you get attractive. So we'll see what we can do there. Probably keep the dark wood like that, so you end up with that echelon, the attractive wood grain pattern. I want to keep that beautiful dark side, so maybe I could skim off there, have a bit of a play of a 4.5. The 4.5 will fit down through the middle of that, lovely. So that might be an option, but give yourself plenty of U to cope with. It's all ideas. So that's the project for today, and then tomorrow obviously once it's glued up I can start tiddling around with that. So thanks for joining me again. This is a sort of workshop tips and tricks, gratefully appreciated and backed by Patreon, and they'll get first shout at looking at videos like this, so they benefit from it. The other thing is, obviously, if I end up with an additional blade every now and again, it goes on Patreon first. So being able to help me out to support me by doing these videos, because obviously time involved, slowing everything down, greatly appreciated. Thanks to everybody for their continued support on Patreon, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. Understood as I've gone, but you can see that's a gap there, that does close up, how I've used what I've done to get that effect. And the way I do it, there aren't many people, as far as I know, do the center fillet that aids in drilling at a later point. It's just one of those Wessex techniques. Thanks for joining me again. Scott Wessex Blades on Instagram and Forest Block, and as again supported by Patreon.